What's up, guys? Welcome to Triple Thread Talks. I'm Krys. This is my co-host Jen, and tonight we're going to be talking about the University of Idaho murders.
This entire thing is just completely insane. The whole storyline from where it starts to where it has not yet ended, actually. There's so many conspiracies, so many thoughts, so much confusion. I think we should just dive in deep to all of it and try to clear as much as we can up for everybody that's listening.
I know I've been super confused.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone on Reddit's been like a huge source of information for me. They're confused. TikTok is confused.
We're
It's
all
just it's
confused.
there. This is such a loaded case, and they're
Mhm.
so tight-lipped about it. So we're getting bits and pieces everywhere, but it's a lot.
The police are tight-lipped. The parents have and siblings or people around them have been having so many interviews done. I know I had just told you that I know somebody that went to the University of Idaho and they posted something about it on Facebook, and people under it commented because of course they have mutual friends, and they were
Mhm.
saying there are film crews that are just setting up every single day outside of the house. And at one point, you want to say, when are we going to respect the privacy? But
Oh,
on the
well.
other hand, we all want to know. I mean, that's why if you're
Mhm.
listening to this podcast, we just want to know what's going on. I think we all just want to help this case. Internet sleuth or not, it
Mhm.
is what it is, you
The
know?
public always wants to know. I hadn't
Of
even thought
course.
about that. I've got lots of family in Boise, and I haven't even contacted them about it. And I'm pretty sure at least one of my cousins went to University of Idaho, so I might reach out to
Wow,
them. Yeah,
for
they still live there
sure.
in Boise right now. But yeah, so I guess we can start by
Mhm.
going down the line and maybe talking about the timeline of events.
For sure.
So as we know, we have four victims: 21-year-old Kaylee Goncalves, 21-year-old Madison Logan, 20-year-old Xana Kernodle, and 20-year-old Ethan Chapin. And
Oh,
they were
they're
murdered
baby.
on November 12th. I know, babies, literal babies.
I
Yeah.
can't. Taken way, way, way too soon. And
Mm-hmm.
what was behind this? I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it seems like it was like premeditated in a sort of way. And that's what I feel, at least.
That's what it seems like one minute, and then the next minute something new comes out that just it totally contradicts everything that you know. That's what's so
Mhm.
frustrating about this case. I think probably the best thing we could do, at least for right now, is go through what we know as far as the timeline of events, and then we will get into some of the little extras that have been sprinkled in by mostly by the family members. And even some blind items by people who are on campus or who were there that night or saw the girls that night or saw Xana and Ethan that night. So in the off-campus house, there were five roommates in the house. It's reported that there is a sixth person on the lease, but we do not know who that person is, and they were not in the home at the time of the murders. The people in the house were Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and then the two surviving roommates, BF and DM. On November 12th, Kaylee and Madison, who are two childhood best friends, they went to the Corner Club bar from 10 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. At this time, Ethan and Xana were across the street from the home at Sigma Chi, which I believe is a frat house, and they were
Right.
at a party. At around 1:40 a.m., the two girls, Kaylee and Madison, are seen at the grub truck getting some food before they go home. There is surveillance footage of them at the grub truck. They get their food and they catch a private ride home. I don't know if it's a ride share or if it was a friend of theirs. There's been very conflicting statements on how they got home, but private
Right.
ride, that's what we'll say. It looks like they got home somewhere between 1:45 and 1:50. And it just so happens Ethan and Xana got home around the same time as well. It's been speculated that Ethan and Xana were actually home before Kaylee and Madison were, but they all arrived home around the same time. All we know after they arrived home, all four of them, that there were 9 phone calls made to a JD, who we now know is Kaylee's longtime on again, off again boyfriend. These phone calls were made by Kaylee and Madison. Kaylee called him 6 times and Madison called him 3 times, from 2:26 a.m. to the final call being made at 2:52 a.m.
Wow.
Police speculate that these murders took place between 3 and 4 a.m. So these calls were made to JD just moments before they were attacked. So a few hours later, well, several hours later, the 2 surviving roommates, they wake up. All we know is that they maybe found one of the roommates. We're not sure which of the 4, and they deemed them to be unconscious or just not waking up. They notified some of their friends to come over and help wake them up. And eventually a 911 phone call was made a little after 11 a.m. on November 13th that someone in the house was unconscious and they couldn't get them to wake up. Police arrived at the scene, and that is where they found the slain bodies of Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Madison on the 2nd and 3rd floors of the house.
There's so many conflicting stories. People are saying that the roommates came out of the house, one of them passed out, and a bystander called and reported someone unconscious. Or was it Ethan? Because we now know Ethan was found in the living area.
Kind of like the living room area. I've heard conflicting statements on this as well. All I think we know is he was not found in the bed.
What?
Kaylee and Madison, we know from the parents now, they were sleeping in the same bed. They were on the 3rd floor. They were both found slain in that bed. Ethan appears to have been found outside of his bedroom. Well, Xana's bedroom. He was staying the night with Xana, his girlfriend. And then Xana was found, it looks like maybe potentially between the bedroom and the hallway, with several defensive wounds. And they haven't really confirmed where she was found, but I have heard reports that they potentially found her DNA in the hallway outside of the bedroom.
You know, the police are coming in and trying to preserve everything as perfectly as possible. They're going to find out who was involved in the actual steps to murdering these individuals. That
well, it's going to be hard to do, because when you have 4 people murdered and we're presuming that it was one person who murdered them all,
right, you're
going to have a mixture of DNA. I'm sure you're going to have all 4 of them. Their blood is going to be everywhere.
Yep.
Because, you know, they said that these police officers said that this was the most brutal, gruesome, blood-filled murder house that they had ever seen.
I really do want to say that the last homicide that this city has seen was 7 years ago. That is absolutely insane. So for 7 years to go by and then it's something like this, it just seems so targeted.
Yeah, a lot of the other students who live there have stated that it's a very safe campus. Off campus is also very safe. It's not, you know, abnormal to have students walking all hours of the night, and it wasn't abnormal for them to leave their car doors and the doors to their homes unlocked. They never had any issues.
Right.
You know, so that also raised speculation too. How did they get in? Because there didn't appear to be any forced entry at any point. So that makes me question, well, maybe the door wasn't locked. Maybe they walked right in.
Well, maybe they said, I'll leave the door unlocked for you. You leave it unlocked for me. They both got home at the same time. So the 4 of them, but the 2 groupings, they walked in like, are they home or not? I'll leave it open.
Well, that, and they were all drunk. They were all partying. They could have come home and just not even thought about it.
A lot of people are like, how would the roommates not hear? And I watched and listened to some interviews about people that have previously lived in that complex, I guess you could say. And they said, you can't hear anything from this floor to that floor. That's how the construction was. And people are like, how?
they were in the basement too. It was reported that their rooms were in like the basement area of the house.
Especially if you're intoxicated and
Mhm.
coming home drunk, passing out, and then
Mhm. Well, and there's a lot of unknowns with the two surviving roommates. Rightfully so, their privacy deserves to be protected. They just went through something horribly traumatic. I'm sure they
Right.
have survivor's guilt. I'm sure that they are traumatized and scared and confused. But there were some people, and this was probably false information, honestly, because a lot of that is being spread. We just experienced that 5 minutes ago on Reddit. But it was reported that one of the roommates had stated they did hear something, they heard fighting, and they locked their doors. Now, it had also been speculated that Xana and Ethan maybe had been arguing that night. And this is where the theories run wild, because I honestly, I think if those 9 phone calls hadn't been made to JD, the theories wouldn't be on fire like they are. Because those 9 phone calls in such a short period of time, right? It feels frantic. It feels like I need to get a hold of you right now. This late. It's strange.
I think that, and I hate to say it like this, people are saying, why would those 2 roommates be left alive and be able to survive? You have to understand, even if you're a killer, you are literally a human being. Even if you're effed up in the head, you're a human being. So as much fight and anger that you have in you, after offing 4 different people in such a disgusting and tragic way, that takes a lot out of you, because they're not going without a fight. Xana, she fought back so hard. That takes a lot of energy out of you. And so you do that to 4 different people. You don't know if they have the energy to like keep on being like, okay, 2 more, like, let's go. Like, this is easy. Like, hello.
Well, and it could have been too that the killer didn't know the full layout of the house, maybe didn't know that there were 2 other people in the home. It could have been, I had seen somebody kind of compare this, whoever this was, to a Richard Ramirez type, where maybe they did go down there and try to open the door, and when it was locked, they were like, no, I'll take that as my sign to not, because that's what Richard Ramirez used to do. If he couldn't get into your home, he would not murder you. If you left a window or a door unlocked, he took that as his universal sign that he could kill you.
There we go.
And there's
that
just
is
so
like
many
so
possibilities.
insane.
The possibilities are endless. And there are a few key players that I do want to talk about from that night that have made people speculate like crazy. And I fully get it. I'm going to, as I said in the beginning, use initials, first of all, for their privacy, because we do not believe in causing any hate or
Outing anybody.
outing people when we don't fully know what's going on. But these things do need to be discussed. First of all, there are 3 Jacks and a Jake, which makes this very confusing. So here's what we're going to do. Okay. JD, that is Kaylee's ex-boyfriend. Okay. JS, that is was Madison's current boyfriend. JS2 is the person that, if you don't know yet, many people refer to as Hoodie Guy from the live surveillance at the grub truck. Okay, JS2. And that's who we're going to talk about first.
I think so. And the timeline of events, I mean, it's also weird.
It's very weird. So when the girls were at the food truck, there was, surveillance footage. I heard it was like a live stream possibly, but anyhow, it was video surveillance of what was going on.
I think they do like a Twitch thing.
That, I think that is what it is. Yeah. But it actually, it caused a lot of confusion, because in the video, the girls are clearly there getting their food, and there is a man there who we now know of as JS2. He looked very out of place, to be quite honest. He's kind of standing around looking at the girls, looks like he tries to interact with them a little bit. He's talking to another guy. He looks up and sees the camera, and he kind of steps out of frame a little bit, and he puts his hood on and a hat, and then he kind of steps back behind the girls. They're up at the truck getting their food. They're laughing, they're playing around. Looks like maybe Madison's on her phone, and he's kind of lurking behind them, watching them.
Right.
So the person he was speaking with, the other man that JS2 was speaking with, said that he was, I guess, friends with the girls. He's a neighbor of all of the roommates, and he was just kind of watching them, making sure that they got a safe ride home, and that
Right.
he thought maybe he was going to be the one giving them a ride home, but he's in the back watching them. At one point, they're kind of standing beside each other, Kaylee, Madison, and JS2. They're standing beside each other, and you hear Madison look at him and say, "Fuck you." Whether she was talking to him or just looking in his direction and talking to Kaylee, it's really hard to decipher the context fully, but you hear "fuck you."
I
And
didn't
then,
know that.
yes, you do. It's very clear. She says "fuck you," and then they kind of run off. And it does look like they run off, the two girls. So Madison and Kaylee,
They got
they
their
take
food?
off. They got their food and they take off around the corner.
Okay.
And this hoodie guy, who, in my opinion, he does look out of place. He just does. If he didn't, then why did so many people notice him? And why is there this theory that he could possibly be involved?
Right.
So he follows behind them. He kind of looks around.
JS2.
Yep. He looks around a little bit. They leave. He kind of throws his hands up like that. He takes a look, and then he kind of follows on in their general direction. Well, the guy who was speaking with him at the grub truck said, I guess JS2 thought he was going to be their ride home. So when they took off, he was like, "What the fuck?" and kind of followed behind them. And they ended up getting a different ride home. However, for many, many viewers of that video, it looked suspicious because it did look like he was there watching them. And then, of course, when he followed behind them, it looked suspicious. Before I knew anything about him, I remember watching that video the minute it came out, and I was like, that guy, that's sketchy.
I watched it so many times over because they're like, hoodie guy. And I just kept looking, hoodie guy. And
I saw him immediately.
I just kept watching. I'm like, I want to look at each and every individual.
This is what's so interesting about it. Now, I want to repeat, this is all alleged. We have no concrete proof of any of this, but it does need to be discussed. It is rumored, strictly rumored at this point, that JS2 lived, or I guess technically maybe still lives, beside the house where the 4 roommates were murdered. They were neighbors.
Right.
But it's also been rumored that he was kicked out of his fraternity house for his anger issues. That one of the workers at the bar reported that he was also kicked out of that corner club bar for making women feel uncomfortable there. And on his Instagram, he is pictured, he looks like he is a hunter, and he is pictured with knives, or a knife, very similar to what the police suspect was used in these murders. So it's all just kind of strange, but the guy who was talking with him at the food truck said nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He was a cool guy, super chill. He did not give me any bad vibes. He was just watching the girls to make sure they got home. But then why did they run off? Why did Madison say, "Fuck you"? And why did he follow behind them? He didn't follow behind them like, "Hey, wait." He looked around to see if anyone was looking,
and then
slowly lurked away. At least that's what it appears. I mean, point blank, it's what it looks like.
It is what it looks like. And we all have to sit here and think, what does it look like? No player in the game is left innocent until proven guilty. Everybody's innocent until proven guilty. But everything is not adding up. It's not.
It's too confusing. So, there's a wild theory about JS too, that maybe he's the one who did this. Maybe he did have anger issues, and he was skilled with a knife, and he did follow them back to the house, and they kind of report him as having incel-like behavior, making women
Mm-hmm.
feel uncomfortable, being very angry towards them. Whether or not that's true, who knows? This is all rumors.
But here's the thing. If you look at all these serial killers, which I don't want to say whoever killed them is a serial killer, but you look at them, they're very charismatic.
Yeah,
They they know their part. They don't act their part in public. They just kind of wow people and
right.
then go in and do their thing. I mean, look at Ted Bundy, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Very
I mean,
charming. Mm-hmm.
yes, handsome, charming, handsome to some, but charming, they have all these wow factors that you think, wow, that could never be them.
Right.
Not a
Yeah.
chance. And then you
Yeah.
look back and say, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
What? What was
Yeah.
going on in your head? But the thing is that we cannot sit here and say what was going on in your head. We are not serial killers. That's why we don't think that way. We don't have the same brain. So
Mm-hmm.
we really can't sit here and say, what, wait, there's no way he was thinking that. You don't know how that person thinks. And I say
No.
he because, like, a lot of the interviews, they're all saying he.
Yeah, they keep referring to him as a he, and I kind of did some digging on that. Basically, investigators stated that there's just no way a female would be capable of murdering four people like this. It had to have been a male with some level of strength. Now,
Mhm.
I disagree with that. I think it doesn't matter who you are. If you have just blind rage and this was some kind of crime of passion,
And
it
it's
absolutely could. It
the
absolutely could be a
adrenaline.
female. Well, what's so strange too about JS2 is apparently after these murders took place, part of his alibi was that around that time, he actually left and went to his parents' cabin 5 hours away. So that makes
In
no
the middle
sense.
of the night?
In the middle of the night, after being up partying and at this food truck, you're going to leave and drive 5 hours away. It's suspicious. Why would you leave? I don't know. And maybe it's totally unrelated, but the timing of that and the way that he appears in the video, I can totally see why people are looking at him. But
For sure.
I
Like,
respect the fact though that the police cleared him, because they did. They said that they do not believe he had anything to do with this. They did clear JS2. They cleared JD, who was Kaylee's on again, off again boyfriend that they called that morning. And they cleared JS, who is Madison's current boyfriend.
and sometimes they refer to him as fiance.
Yeah, sometimes they said fiance. And this isn't very clear either, but it's reported that either JD or JS was in Boise at the time of the murders. I
Hmm.
cannot find anywhere which one it is. It's just people arguing that one of them happened to be in Boise at the time or lived in Boise at the time.
Nothing is actually adding up.
No, it's not. And then there's another theory I kind of wanted to talk about, which is the
Yeah.
serial killer theory. There was a crime that took place in Seattle, Washington, that is
Hmm.
very similar. I'm not going to name their names either. There was a couple sleeping in their bed in Seattle, Washington, and they were awoken by a masked man who came in and started stabbing them multiple times. The husband, he was stabbed, I think I could be wrong, over 20 times. And he did try to fight, but he succumbed to his injuries. The wife, however, she was stabbed 19 times and miraculously she lived. And she just,
Wow.
yeah, she stated that this person came into the house and just started stabbing. Now, Moscow police have stated that they do
There's
think that
no.
there's a possible connection, and they
Oh.
are investigating the connection because the nature of the crimes are very similar.
But you never know because every time the Moscow police come out and say something, it just the next day they like come back and say, "Oh no, you know what? XYZ.
Right.
But I do think with all the reports that are going on and all the interviews that are going on with the entire family are just completely screwing up this whole thing.
Oh, the family. I can't decide whether or not them saying what they're saying is a good thing or potentially
Coach.
hazardous thing, because, well, they're just, sometimes maybe they're saying too much, but I understand that they're very frustrated.
Yeah.
They really seem to me like they want the public's help. They want help because they don't have answers.
Look at Gabby Petito.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's why they are saying probably more than they should. Something that was released today was Kaylee's, I think it was Kaylee's dad, did an interview and stated that the nature of the 4 murders differed between each victim.
Yeah.
They were not murdered in the same fashion. He does not elaborate on that, but it kind of makes me wonder if perhaps one of them was stabbed fewer times, or.
But if one of them, which they said is a fact, was mutilated, they took their anger out.
It could just be an energy thing too. I'm sure if you're violently murdering 4 people, by the time you get to the last 2, you're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you're not. And,
right.
and then maybe at that point, the killer he couldn't keep up with the energy he had come in with, or she. But it also could have been that it's highly speculated that Ethan or Xana woke up and heard the commotion, and that's why they were not found just sleeping in their beds. They were found in other areas. So perhaps maybe the girls were the target, and Ethan or Xana woke up and then they just became collateral because they were in the way. So maybe they were simply murdered to kill them, and it wasn't this passionate attack.
Right. I mean, I can fully agree with that as well. I mean, there's so many things I think you can agree on when listening to all of the different speculations.
We have barely scratched the surface of all of the theories. I think we would be here for hours if we were to talk about each one. So
yeah,
I think we should talk about a few theories of ours.
I personally have a theory against JD. I mean,
like, you think he's involved?
Yeah.
Oh,
because
okay.
the fact that he was called so many times, I have an iPhone. I know you have an Android, but Siri, if you have Siri, not to where you have to click the side of it, but you could just say, "Hey Siri," and Siri picks up on it. But what if they said his name multiple times? Siri started calling it. That's why Siri called over and over again. And then it picked up on the roommate's phone as well. And I mean, that's just a theory.
Well, the phone calls, I really do believe that that's what kind of derails this whole thing, because they got home apparently at 1:45 and the first phone call to JD was made at 2:26. So something happened in that 40 minutes between when they got home and they started repeatedly calling him. I want to know what happened in those 40 minutes. What was going on in those 40 minutes that caused them to want to call him, if they did call him on their own accord? I kind of thought maybe, now this is wild and this is just a theory, we all have location on our phones.
Mm-hmm.
They all use Snapchat.
Mm-hmm.
It's been reported that they all had the GeoSnap on, which what that does is it shows your location on Snapchat. Because honestly, I do not think JD is involved, but maybe they saw his GeoSnap or his location and saw that he was there. Let's assume killer was already in the house before they got home, and that's why we have no reasonable point of entry at this point. Maybe they saw the location was on, started calling him, and maybe they heard his phone vibrate, or they just kept calling him to try to figure out what they were hearing, or try to figure out why he was in that location,
or why his phone was possibly left there, because it was a party house, as they said, as any college student like they are would have a party house. I mean, they had an amazing house, like a 3-story house.
They did.
They did. I mean,
it was in a populated area too,
right.
The phone calls really, they freaked me out. And another thing that is odd is that at around 3 a.m, somewhere in there, a 911 call was made to Sigma Chi directly across the street. And if that's the case, the police were dispatched to Sigma Chi around the time the murders were occurring, right across the street.
Like the girl that I know, she said the police are out there and not equipped to handle that kind of thing.
Well, yeah,
I
they don't
mean,
see it often. And they said it was
yeah.
the worst case or the worst crime scene they had ever seen. Traumatizing.
What was going on, especially if Xana and Ethan were there
Right.
a little bit prior to when the police were
Mhm.
called.
Yeah, it's reported that they did get there first.
So what is your theory?
I mean, I think it's very possible that it was a random attack, perhaps. Their house was kind of centered, in my opinion. You had the wooded area near the
Mm-hmm.
house, but you could almost look down into their backyard from the parking garage that
Parking
was
lot,
right
yeah,
next door. And then they're right across from Sigma Chi. I mean, they looked like
right,
they were in a pretty populated area. You have
right.
college kids walking around everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they caught somebody's attention. These were beautiful girls. Ethan did not live there, so it was just girls all living in one house. Maybe this person knew their moves, knew where they were going to go on this night. I do believe that the killer was in the house before they got home.
Me too.
It just doesn't make sense that they can't find a point of entry. It was either someone who knew them or a stranger who went into the house, because so many of these college students report that they don't lock their doors because it's such a safe campus.
I bet they all are now, though. Thank God.
Oh, I hope so. I don't know. Some reporter was I think it was Brian Enton, stated that Sigma Chi, that they're still partying and they've
And
been told to
that's
lay
like
low.
disgusting.
It's
That's
so
disgusting.
weird. But at the
I'm
same time, I'm
sorry.
like, if they're traumatized, they're just trying to cope. Maybe they'd all rather be
But
together.
actually, like, come on.
I wouldn't want to be getting drunk if that just happened to 4 other students who were drunk and,
Right.
just wandered home to go to sleep. I wouldn't.
You never know who you're letting in the house at all when you have a party. So, like, I would not be okay with just saying, okay, open doors, like, we're
Right.
having a party. Fuck that.
No.
Actually, like, no, hard no for me.
Well, I will say this. I think it's very odd that JS2 left early morning around the time these murders occurred to go drive
Mhm.
5 hours away to his parents' cabin in the woods. I think that that is odd, even though they
Yeah,
cleared him, and I know they did, and I fully respect that.
they cleared many of
But
people.
I just have to speculate because I think that is very odd. It could have been
Mhm.
coincidental. However, his appearance at the grub truck, it doesn't
Didn't
help
look good.
matters any, to the public. And I'm no internet sleuth or anything like that, but I do look at that with a very logical mind, and I'm like, I didn't like the
Mhm.
behavior. It made me feel a type of way. And then finding out that, potentially he left to go to this cabin is odd.
Yeah.
I will never get over the 9 calls made to JD. That that to me is the most confusing of this entire thing, because that makes me think in those 40 minutes something was happening. Somebody
Yeah.
was in the house, they were hearing something, maybe there was an altercation, something was going on. Because
Right.
yes, they found Kaylee and Madison in the bed. That does not mean that they were asleep when they were murdered.
Right.
It doesn't
Right.
mean that. They could have just been held against their will on the bed and then murdered. You don't know
You
that.
don't
You
know
don't
that.
know anything. So in that 40 minutes, that is the time frame I'm looking at. But 40 minutes from the
And
time they got home to the time they started calling him. Why? Like, it's just so odd, because if it was an emergency, why wouldn't you call 911? And I know a lot of
right.
people are like, it wasn't unlike Kaylee and Madison to call people in the middle of the night just to say hi. Okay, that's fine. But this wasn't any normal
So
night.
many times
They
too.
were murdered, what, 15 minutes later? I think that period, that 40-minute period, is extremely important. And I hope that they're
Yeah.
looking into that.
I think something's gonna come out soon.
I do too. I think they know who the killer is.
Me too.
They want him to let his guard down and think that he or she got away with it.
Then they're gonna be like, all right,
Oh,
that's
I'm
it
sure
for
they're
you,
watching
homie.
him. Yeah. If they know who it is, there's constant surveillance. Or if they know who it is and this person has run off, then they're probably just looking for him.
It breaks my heart.
Hmm.
But I do think that we're gonna come to a conclusion. And I don't think that it's gonna be just an unsolved case. I really don't.
No, I don't either. Too much DNA. It looked
Yeah.
too sloppy.
Yep.
There's no way that whoever did this didn't leave something behind. I know we talked about as much as we could. There are several key players here that we did not discuss. I feel like at this point it would be way too confusing. We just really wanted to keep it right to the facts and talk
Yeah.
about the most popular theories surrounding this case and the most confusing parts of this case.
I think we're gonna have to come back for a part 2. I know we took a few week-long break, you guys, and we appreciate everybody that's been consistently listening and watching. We love you guys so much. I just want to say thoughts and prayers to the families, but I think they're a family now,
Oh,
honestly,
yeah.
if they weren't before. And I just can't believe I would never wish this upon anybody ever in a million years. And I really hope that we can get down to the facts of it and find out who the cause was, because I could only imagine how the neighbors and the other college students feel that
Yeah.
this person is just kind of running loose.
Yeah, they're out there living their lives. Hopefully, we get a confession and
Mhm.
just for the families so they can know exactly what happened to their
Of course.
babies.
My God. All right, you guys. On this note, we're gonna let you go. We love you guys so much. Please subscribe to our channel, like it, and we are on all major platforms. And whatever else you think, leave it in the comments. If you have any other theories, tag us, even if it's on TikTok or Instagram, whatever. We can't wait to hear it, and we hope to see you guys soon.
Bye.